Podcast. I'm Noah, co-founder, co-host.
I'm Perry Avgerinos, co-founder of Sheesh, co-host of the Sheesh Podcast.
It's awesome to finally be sitting down and doing the podcast. We've wanted to do this for quite some time.
Long time. I feel like it was one of the first things we wanted to do since we started Sheesh back in 2019. And I remember like it was a couple months into Sheesh. We were doing like the Instagram page. We launched the IG, and then we were like, well, we need to start this podcast. Like, let's just do everything at once. And I visited you down in Miami. You were still finishing school at Miami. And we almost started it with like just using voice memos, which in hindsight, like, I'm glad we waited. Like, that would have been
I don't think that would have been the play, but that was before the podcast boom.
It
so
was
that would have been
before,
kind of
so
a good move to start back then,
Yeah.
but I think it's for the best that we didn't. But I think now is the perfect time to do it. I think we both agree on that. And I mean, we've been interviewing artists for a long time now. We kind of started initially interviewing artists through DM and emailing questions to artists, and then that kind of transitioned into Zoom interviews, and then we moved out to LA and we started doing in-person stuff. But the podcast was always something in the back of our heads. Every time we were doing interviews with artists in LA, we always just wanted to do the podcast. The interviews were great, but we didn't feel like we were getting to put out the content that we really wanted to. And we were having such genuine conversations with these artists, and we would primarily use those conversations and, you know, clip them up and post like a couple clips on TikTok and Instagram, and really just we were honing in on questions that would be good for social media. But we were also having such great conversation with these artists, and most of those interviews were like 20, 25, 30 minutes long, and we were really only using like 2 minutes of that
we were
content.
showing like 5% of the interview, and it just didn't sit right with us, because it's like some of the questions that we would end up posting were kind of like, oh, you know what, this might be the best thing for social to like do well,
to get views. We were all in it for the numbers at that point.
Yeah, and it's like that's not why we interview these artists. Like, we want to get to know them much deeper than just like relatable questions. But so yeah, this is why we're starting the podcast. We're so excited to sit down with artists, but we wanted to introduce ourselves and kind of the backstory of Sheesh, how we got started first. Next episode, we will have a guest, so stay tuned for that. But
I wonder who we'll have.
I have some ideas.
We got a couple lined up already. But
honestly, actually, drop in the comments if you're watching on YouTube who you would want to see on our podcast.
True.
Anyone's fair game. We're going to start with artists, but we'll tap in with creatives and other people at some point for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. I mean, really, we started this up just to have genuine conversations and just have a good time with it. I mean, I think that's the most important thing, is enjoy what you do, and, you know, sitting down and getting to learn more about these artists and then be able to post the full interview will be special.
Yeah, so I guess we could start with like
how we met.
Okay.
I think that's the first thing.
That's fair. So, all right. I mean, to go back, Noah and I both went to the University of Miami, but we didn't know each other until junior year, or my junior year.
Technically my sophomore year. We're the same age, but
yeah, same age. Like, I'm a month older, but so the whole story is like basically at the University of Miami, a popular spring break spot is going to like Bimini in Bahamas. And we were both in different fraternities, and like we were the ambassador for our fraternities, to kind of recruit people to go to this spring break trip. Shout out STFU and party.
Yes.
Our boy Jason Vanesso. Such a fun time, but
incredible time. I think I only went once.
Same.
Yeah. So
you don't go back. Like, well, you can.
Maybe.
You can.
Yeah.
One was enough for me, though.
I mean, that one time was a good time.
Yeah, you're not topping that,
Yeah.
I feel like. But, so yeah, we went on this spring break trip. A lot of Miami kids go. A lot of kids from all over the country go to it.
Mostly, I would say Florida schools, but I think nowadays it's
I remember meeting some like Arizona people. Like there were other schools, but it's just a week-long party.
It's a vibe. It's a vibe.
Like,
yeah.
Let's be real. And yeah, I mean, we just randomly met. You know, we're meeting all kinds of people there. And I remember we were drinking, like, you know, I don't remember a lot
Just catching
from the conversation.
Yeah, just catching a wave.
But we were just like, oh, like you go to Miami, I go to Miami. We don't know each other. Like, what's good? And the only thing I remember from the conversation really was like, your fraternity house, which is right next to mine, had a basketball court. And I remember just being like, I think it was me, maybe it was you, but we were like, let's play basketball sometime. So nothing related to
very
music.
Casual conversation.
Convo.
I mean, at that point, I wasn't even into the music scene, really.
You were
both,
social chair at the time?
I don't remember.
Or not yet?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. But at that time, I mean, we were just enjoying college. Bimini was the place to be. And yeah, it was kind of, I mean, we got very lucky that we did meet because I don't remember the whole thing, but I mean, your friend group was kind of around my friend group at that time in that certain area. And we were just kind of like outside. I don't know what we were doing, but we were just kind of not
like
bored.
A pool party.
Not bored, but like I think my friends started talking to your friends, and then we just kind of
something like
connected.
Yeah,
and then
it was a day drink pool party event.
Yes,
so the
that's
whole
what
trip,
it was.
There's different events, something during the day, something at night. That was just like a day drink pool party vibe. And
and so you really wanted to play basketball because my
did.
fraternity had the basketball court, and you could see our houses were right next to each other. So
there's one brick wall dividing it. I mean,
yeah, exactly. So yeah, so we caught a vibe. We had a great time at Bimini, but that was really all. We only talked.
That was it. Maybe 10-minute convo.
10-minute convo.
And then we
went our own ways.
Our ways, yeah.
Enjoyed the rest of it, and then I don't know. Did we exchange numbers, or maybe you got my number? I don't think I got your number.
We either
I'm bad with putting contacts.
I don't know.
In my
I think
phone,
we
you know
at
that.
least exchanged like IGs or something.
Something. I mean,
because you DM'd me. So
yes,
this is where
right.
I'm going with
but
it.
No, we got something else after that. So I think you had my number because you never hit. I think you have my number. I gave you my number.
You probably
and I don't think you hit me up
hit
because
with it.
After spring break, final season's approaching. It gets very hectic with school and just final exams and everything. And it's not like I'm butthurt that you didn't hit me up.
Nah, the truth's coming out.
The truth may be coming out here. And no, we just went our own way. And not gonna lie, if you wanted to hoop, we would have hooped. But
oh damn.
So fast forward to summer though.
Yeah.
I moved out to New York City. New York was kind of the place to be during the summer. A lot of kids are from the Northeast or either go to New York for the summer for internships. I got an internship at the Bronx Museum doing marketing, which was super random, but it was a way for me to get out in the city and a reason to be there. And at the time, my major was marketing, so I was like, all right, this is perfect. Like, my mom would be cool with it. Like, let's do it. And so I was interning there, and it was okay. Like, I think it was a good experience just learning, more about marketing. And I was doing a lot of stuff for the museum, which was great, but it wasn't really like, it wasn't really something.
It
wasn't my passion.
Like,
and at the end of the day, if you're not passionate about it and you don't love doing it, and the commute was horrible. I was living in, I wasn't.
Where were you at?
I was living like in the tourist areas. Me and
in Manhattan.
Yeah, in Manhattan.
Okay.
I was living like not near Times Square. No, not. I don't know. Like in the middle of the city, not like Lower East Side where we lived.
Yeah.
But it was a reason to be out there. It wasn't something I was passionate about, but that kind of led us to start our relationship. I was I think I was going into that fall year was going to be my first semester being a social chair for my fraternity. So I was
currently social
right.
chair,
I was
so.
really thinking about the upcoming parties because I was planning out, all the social events with the sororities and just the events in general. And I really wanted to DJ for the events. I wasn't looking to be like a touring DJ or anything like that, but I wanted to DJ the parties. I was like, bro, if I'm throwing the parties and also DJing the parties, like that's a wave. Like that's cool, which honestly is what you were doing. But I put together would you call it a mix? I guess. We'll call it a mix. So I always felt like I had really good music taste, but I had no experience with production or DJing, anything music related. So I think I just put together this mix on
SoundCloud.
Yeah, but like I don't even know how I put it together initially. But
what software?
I don't even know what software I use. But I put it on I put it on SoundCloud, and the music selections were fire. So I sent it over. Well, before I sent it to you, I was like, who could I send this to give me feedback and, just to give me feedback and see what they think. And the first person that came to mind was you because I had nobody, none of my friends were really into that at the time. And I knew you were already DJing, producing, like doing your thing in Miami at as well. And I sent you a DM. I don't know why I didn't send you a text. I guess I didn't have your number because you didn't text me. You didn't text me.
Probably didn't.
Yeah, you didn't text me.
Yeah.
And so I sent you a DM, and then
so I get the DM, and look, I've always been like very nice when people reach out about music because when I was producing and DJing at Miami, like there were a bunch of kids, at least a handful, that would like hit me on the side and be like, yo, I think this is dope. Like, I'm trying to get into it. Like, where should I start? So I always was like, I'll give you, like, do this. Like, I don't care. Like, whatever.
It's not like affecting like what you're doing.
No, it doesn't affect me. Yeah. Like, I'm always down to help. So you sent me your mix and like I listened to it. The mixing was bad, yes, but the song selection was good.
Bray's laughing over there.
Shout out Bray, our boy. What's up, Bray? Yeah, the song selection was good, and that was basically the gist of the feedback. I was like, the transitions could be improved, but
the
great
song selection was there. But that's what kind of. So you responded. You pretty much told me that stuff, and I think I sat with it for a second. I was like,
you didn't really. I don't remember you saying anything back. I can find the DM. I might have to.
We need to
put the DM in the video, but
yeah. So you sent that. I kind of sat on it, and then I was thinking to myself because at that time I was marketing major, interning, doing marketing, and didn't have any music background whatsoever. I was like, Perry's already DJing, already producing. I was like, why don't I just like help him out, market him, get him in venues, start, putting out stuff. And that kind of made a lot of sense to me. So I think right off the bat, I was like, yo, like, let me help you out or manage. I don't know if I said manage you off the rip, but I was like, let me help you out.
Yeah.
Maybe I said manage because I'm pretty straightforward, but
I don't remember exactly, but I remember like you kind of sat on my feedback for like a month maybe. And then you hit me back.
A month?
Yeah.
Probably.
You probably sent it like in June. By July, you're like, yo, like something, like I want to help you out. Maybe you said manage, but like
I want to be a part of what you're doing. Like I want to help.
You were trying to help my project.
Because I saw off the rip how I could help you. I mean, I was going into that fall semester and I was becoming social chair, so I was getting tapped in with the venues and everything. And I think I saw a bigger picture for your project and what you were doing. And that's kind of what started our relationship and our friendship.
It did.
Right there in that summer because you were living at home and you kind of needed something to work on as well. I was going to say
like that summer. So I was a junior going into senior year summer. So like that kind of traditionally is like a very important summer because a lot of
it's a
people
huge
like
summer.
that internship you get during that period is like usually where
you get a
you
job.
can get hired
Yeah.
from that company. And I had nothing. Like the internship that I thought I had lined up for myself fell through. It was for some music company in New York. And then last minute I got in contact with like this music blog down in Philly. Met with the founder. Like I was like, all right, I could at least like do this. Like this is something in the music industry. And then that fell through. So I was literally just like living at home. I ended up interning with my dad just to like do something.
Just
But
keep busy at that
wasn't
point.
interested in like what he does, finance stuff. But so yeah, so you started like kind of grinding my gears with like music stuff, and I was like all for it. And the first idea we came up with together was coming up with like this tailgate mix centered around the University of Miami. Like specifically, no one's really done that, at least at the time.
No, not at that time.
And obviously like football season, tailgate culture is like huge, but especially at Miami, like that's a big part of the culture there. So we were both fired up on the idea. I was like, you know, I'll crush this. Like we have a direction. I started working on that. We were like sending songs back and forth. That would be good. I started making my own mashups for it. Like kind of going like a two friends big booty route with
That
it.
was the
biggest
initial inspiration. Yeah.
And then we took like snippets from culturally like iconic Miami things.
Moments, yeah.
So like back in the day, Schmacked was like the biggest thing. Like I watched that video in high school. Like
I'm
hundreds of
Schmacked
times.
was like a pivotal.
It was huge.
I mean, that was watching those videos kind of showed you what the party scene was like. Yeah.
I saw the Miami one and I was like, I want to go to school there. Like
Pretty much every
everyone.
school I saw was like that would be a fun school to go to.
Yeah, so there was a one part in the Miami video that we liked, and I snipped that, and that was the intro to the mix. So off the rip, like if you go to Miami, you know that sound. So you're locked in. And then yeah, we did an hour mix of just straight bangers.
So that whole summer, or probably like the back half of summer, we were just sending songs back and forth.
Yeah, at this point it's like July, getting close to end of July, almost August, and we're like, dude, we'll see each other in a couple weeks.
Yeah,
like, we gotta go back to school. And,
and so we're
like, we need to finish it
quick
before
with that
the
too.
first. I was working hard on
we
that.
were very dedicated to like getting the song set, getting the mix done,
Right.
and getting everything ready to go before we touched ground back in Miami. And we did that, and then we shot the cover, which was kind of an iconic cover to us. I mean, it was such a
I'll
cool...
probably put the photo here, but in case I don't,
You're
was
gonna-
very
gotta put it
Miami.
there. You
I'll
gotta
put the
put it there.
photo. So that's the cover, and yeah, I mean, we had to go all in on it. We called it "This Is You Miami," like stamping the school spirit,
which
on
came
that.
from the...
which is from the snippet from the Schmacked video.
It's like, this is you, Miami, FFSU. Yeah, classic.
These beautiful girls about to wrestle. Let's go.
Yep.
Like you can't get fired up. Can't not get fired up off that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the coolest thing about this whole mix, kind of why we're sharing this, is like that was really the first project we worked on together. Sorry, I'm a little sick right now. And we realized, or at least I internally realized, like that we worked really well together. And as soon as we dropped the mix, I think we dropped it the first home tailgate we had. I remember we missed the first official game.
Waited. Yeah, I think we waited.
Because we play like Bethune-Cookman.
Yeah,
no one cares.
something.
It was the
not
first
of
home
importance,
tailgate we had it ready.
I think we waited for like the most up game. Like we were like, let's do
Yeah,
it.
it was
Let's
the
do it when
first
we're
home
playing
tailgate.
someone. Yeah.
So the first tailgate we had, it was ready. And like the way we marketed this was, looking back, impressive. Like we hit up all the social chairs of the sororities and we're like, yo, please share this on your story. Like this is going to get you hyped. Like, but it worked. Like all of a sudden there was like a good couple days of like all girls, guys, fraternities, doesn't matter, like storing the mix. And within like a few days, it had like 10,000 plays.
It was up. Yeah, it was up. And then I remember when it came out,
yeah,
like at like the fraternities are all near each other, and I remember just walking around and hearing the mix pretty much everywhere, which was cool. But yeah, that was really our first time working on a project together, and I think that kind of solidified our working relationship. And from there, we then said, "Yo, like we got some momentum. Like let's capitalize on it." So from there, we really honed in on DJing. So we were doing, you were doing a ton of openings and just DJing all around at some of the top venues in Miami, which was incredible because we had just really started tapping in. Yeah, just started working together. But that was really the first time the first time you were really like, I mean, you put out the mix, but like it was impressive the amount of bookings you were getting around. It was kind of like,
now we got to follow it up. Like we built this nice momentum, and it's like, all right, like let's see what else we can do.
So you were doing sets at all of these different venues, but then we kind of wanted to start throwing events, and that's when we kind of took it to another level in terms of our working relationship.
And we didn't wait long because the mix came out end of August, early September, whenever the first tailgate was. And I remember the first event we threw together was October.
It was.
So
yeah, that's crazy.
Lizard.
Yeah.
Shout out Lizard. But so that was like within 1 or 2 months, we're like, we're throwing an event.
That was crazy.
And that
was
event,
that at, I don't even think it's a venue anymore, but it was Wynwood Fifth Avenue.
Ave, yeah. And that
sold
crazy.
Out.
It was like
500. Oh my God. That was,
maybe
I don't
more.
remember the capacity, but
it was at least 400 or 500.
No, at least 500. But it was crazy because it was you directly opening for Lizard, and then there was 2 other fraternity DJs, and we kind of just put it together so perfectly, and it was nuts. I mean, tickets, we sold out the event. People were waiting outside to just try and get in. I mean, it's like we sold out. Like it's like you can't get in. But that was our first event, and I mean, massive success in my eyes. But that, and then we were just like, all right, like we work well together. Let's just keep going.
And the whole dynamic was like you were really tapped in with the venues.
And promotion side, all that stuff.
I knew like
the up and comers,
up and coming artists were like hot, and so that's how like we just combined efforts, and then we tapped into our own fraternities, we tapped into the other fraternities and sororities,
just everyone, and
like having other fraternity DJs open was so smart because it's like, oh, if this fraternity's DJ's playing, they're going to recruit their friend.
Yeah, it's going to bring more people.
It was an easy sellout looking back on it. But
yeah, it's crazy. But we did do
it was a lot of fun.
Other events in Miami that weren't as successful, and we learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
But it's not, I mean, yes, that was amazing.
Was the first one. So it was like a really nice.
Yeah, I mean, they're not all going to be insane, but we did a ton of events after that, and I mean that was honestly one of the best. That was our best year of college.
Oh, for hands down.
And I mean that was just, I hate to say it, but it was like a movie. Like it's corny to say, but it was a movie. And I really enjoyed that year. That was a lot of fun. And then that brings us into the summer pretty much.
So the whole backstory with the events and DJing, so us throwing events was actually the seed of why we ended up starting Sheesh. Like when we threw those events, there wasn't a brand for it. We were like putting your name on it, like Noah Schwartz. Like
were we?
We were. Remember that logo?
I had Zach create a logo for me,
and like my name was on it as a DJ. I was always direct support for whatever headliner we booked.
True, but you were under Kilo, which wasn't even Kilo, like Perry.
Name.
Yeah.
So
shout out Kilo.
Shout out Kilo, bro.
What a legend.
Man.
Damn.
Good times. But
yeah, facts.
So the events we were throwing, we were like, we should like create a brand for it. It'll be cleaner, like really could focus on this. So that is why we wanted to start a company in general. Why we wanted to start Sheesh.
Events. I mean,
we wanted to throw events.
That was our bread and butter.
We saw that we were
Don't
pretty good at
forget
it.
we interned for David Grutman. That was
all right.
We can't leave that out.
Senior year, I mean, both of our senior years, even though
taking,
they were different,
I mean, I was taking 6 classes.
We were going ham, bro. I had 6 classes. I was working for Spotify.
True.
Interning for David Grutman.
Yep.
Like building out the Kilo Artist Project, DJing, putting out original music, like, and then trying to find a paying like full-time job.
Yeah.
But that was ironically like the highest GPA I ever had in college.
Same with me. You know that.
Yeah.
I mean,
which is
this
crazy.
was more so the year after when
Yeah.
I was, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, so that's why we like wanted to start Sheesh, and so I graduate, and we both ended up landing an internship in New York, the same company. So we're like,
Well,
all right,
let's go back to how we got that internship. I mean, that was through an event that you got asked to DJ. You remember?
I did get asked. Yeah,
So that's how it all
I got
came
asked to DJ at
life.
this event. We're like, sure, let's do it. I don't even know if I got paid, but it doesn't matter.
But that's how the internship happened.
That's how it happened.
Yeah.
We met. That
All right.
company.
So yeah, we got an internship at the same company.
We interned at the same company in New York. So we're like, we gotta live in New York for the summer. Oh no,
Which we were hype on.
we were so
Yeah,
hyped.
we were hype on that.
So what do? We get a studio apartment
In Lower East
the
Side,
Lower East Side,
which
which
is a
is
great area to be. But
fun area.
it was just us two. We were living in maybe a size 12 shoebox.
I mean, it was probably like 800 square feet max.
Yeah.
That's generous. No, probably like 500.
I
The
don't
living room
no,
was
it was
the
crazy.
bedroom.
Yeah. So we had like a small kitchen.
Small.
Small.
And we were living
And then
on
we had
blow up air mattresses.
We had the main area, which we had 2 air mattresses, and then we had a little table
we had a
for
desk, which was kind
you
of
to
like
put
my
the
studio.
CDJs and the
Had
speakers.
the CJ, my speakers, laptop, keyboard. And then, I mean, that was it, bro.
Bathroom.
Like, bathroom, shower.
Which like you had to stand like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
And I remember in the
But
moment.
that was one of the best. I mean,
Oh, amazing.
I don't know how we didn't
amazing
like
summer. How we didn't fight.
bump heads, you know? I mean,
I
don't know.
Great stories that
great
summer,
stories, but we were just, I mean, we weren't in the apartment that, like we were
kinda just slept
working
there.
and we were just, we just kind of slept there, to be
occasional
honest,
working on music. But yeah, I mean, I even remember during that time, I was like, dude, we're going to look back on this and laugh. Like, this is crazy. But we were like embracing it fully.
Yeah.
And yeah, so we were interning during the day, going back at night and like kind of grinding on what we wanted to do.
Kilo and
Yeah, the artist project, like, you know, having fun in New York. Like New York in the summer, you got rooftops.
A lot of
like,
fun.
A lot of events. So, yeah, that summer, I mean, we ended up DJing events, like rooftop parties, whatever. So we're making progress there. I put out a couple mixes on SoundCloud too. We started like the happy hour series.
True. Yeah.
Which was
I
fun.
forgot about that.
But so the whole thing was during the internship, we had the idea of like, why are we waiting? Like we were sitting in the office. I remember it was you. You were like, dude, today is like,
I get antsy.
yeah, you got a little antsy, but I'm glad you did. 'Cause
Ants in my pants.
we were sitting on this idea. We had some rough name ideas, and I think we actually settled on Sheesh. We were like, Sheesh would be a great name. Like,
I think that's the only name we were.
it was the first
kinda
name that
considering.
came to mind, and we were like, yo, that could be sick. And then we're like, nah, wait, maybe that's corny. And then it went back to like, nah, that's it.
Because we were saying
We
it
were saying it
all the time when we were at school, and so
people started saying it.
people
because
started
we were
saying it
so much.
and it was just like, why not? Like if there was no other company called Sheesh at that time, and we were just like, this kind of just makes a lot of sense. Like we say it a lot, it sounds clean, and we thought it worked perfectly, so we ran with it.
So we're sitting in the office and we're like, all right, Sheesh is the name. Let's make the IG. We're trying to find handles that work. Like Sheesh was taken, unfortunately.
True, yeah.
So we were like, Sheesh Entertainment, like Sheesh Media, whatever. We
didn't think about media. I think we were just like
I don't think so. Yeah, we were like, we're an entertainment company. So we actually used to be, shout out the OGs that know this.
OG.
We were at Sheesh ENT for entertainment. That was the OG.
That was the OG name
for like a good year at least.
Yeah,
maybe a little longer.
Maybe longer. And people always called it Sheesh Ent.
Sheesh Ent, and that really
they
pissed
wouldn't
us off.
understand that it was like Sheesh Entertainment. They would just put it as one word.
Sheesh Ent. Yeah, and that really bothered us. So
yeah, I don't think we were too stoked
down the road.
That.
It led us to changing it, but we wrote it, and like we were like trying to come up with a logo real quick. Like I have very basic Photoshop knowledge at the time, and I had the idea of doing like a bolt, so I drew like.
And we wanted to relate it to an emoji. Like we wanted.
That was the whole thing from the jump. We knew enough about clean, good brands to where we noticed other brands were associating their name with an emoji, so we wanted to do it. And we were like, the lightning bolt would be sick. It looks like an S for Sheesh. So that was it. And like I did a really bad lightning bolt.
It wasn't that bad. You're a pretty good drawer.
It was all right. And it was I remember black lightning bolt on a vibrant yellow background. And that was the logo we launched the page with.
I think we just wanted to get started at that point. We're just like, we got to act on it. I think the first step to starting not even a company, but just like an idea is like doing something about it.
Just do it.
Like the first thing we wanted, like when we had that idea and that initial excitement, we're like, nowadays the first thing you can do is start an Instagram page. So that's kind of what we did.
It got us over the barrier because then once we
launched it, it's a free thing to do, you know?
Right. And once we launched it and we hyped it up to our friends,
all of our friends,
dude, it was like, yo, the pressure's on. Like now what? We have to.
We like that. We like that.
We do like that.
We like
to this day
talking about stuff, and even before it even happens or before, we just like talking about it because then we know we have like our backs up against the wall to be like, all right, we have to do this.
And we're like, now that we said it, we're not going to be the guys that say shit and don't do it.
Nah, we're always trying to do something about it. But yeah, that's a valid point.
So we launched it, and then thankfully we knew our boy Zach Scheibel. Shout out Z, the homie, crazy designer, everything. We linked up with him, and we're like, yo, we have this idea for the company, and he ended up designing the beautiful Sheesh logo. Helped us create. Like we gave him the vision, and he just kind of like ran with it and did his thing. Came up with we collabed on the bolt. Actually, we were really close. He made a bolt that looked kind of like similar. He
gave us a ton of different.
Yeah, he gave us a ton of options. We liked one that like looked very close to the emoji, and then I remember I was like, "What if we round out the edges so it looks more like an S?"
Yeah.
And that made it different from the emoji.
Yep.
We were like, "That's it." So that's how we got the logo.
And that was all during the summer.
Yeah.
Before
so this was still like within at least a couple weeks of starting the page. So it's like relatively from the jump, we had a clean brand, thankfully.
Yeah.
And that was very important. We haven't
changed really much about.
No, we're still using the same logo and colors and stuff. But so yeah, we launched the page, and we started as just like, we didn't know what it was because we wanted to do events, and then COVID happens, right?
But during that, let's not go to COVID yet, but during that time, we were like, all right, we're really passionate about events. We wanted to get into artist management,
right.
And then because I was helping you out, and we just knew that we'd be able to help out other artists at some point. But those were the two
main
pillars. Yeah, those were the two things we wanted to act on. And so, yeah, we started with those two things. I mean, primarily just not even events at that. I mean, we didn't throw
any events.
Yeah,
we posted some old recap videos.
Yeah, we posted our recap videos from
prior events.
Yeah, from that previous like spring or whatever. But
which is good because it kind of set.
It gave us a platform. Yeah, it gave us a platform. But then, yeah. So I mean, you got a job at the company
hired by the company we interned for, and somewhere along those lines, within a month or two, we started thinking about what we could post on the page.
Because it became very, like, we weren't really able to act on events. At that time, I was moving back to Miami. Summer was over. You got hired, so you were staying in New York. I was moving back to Miami, going to finish up school. I had 2 semesters left. And so we were like, we're not really going to be able to do events right now because we're in different states. And the management thing isn't so easy to just like hop right into and just start managing like a bunch of clients. So that wasn't something we were gonna do. And so we were like, let's figure out a way that we can keep this active and promote Sheesh. And so that's when we started doing a bunch of stuff to really help artists out. I mean, our main objective from the start was providing value, was getting our foot in the door, meeting artists, meeting teams, managers, primarily just managers. At that point, we weren't really connected with labels at that point. We were kind of directly like us to the artist, and we were doing artist spotlights. So we had like those animations.
Yeah, so that's the whole thing. It was like, I saw it firsthand as an artist. Like I saw there were so many up and coming artists that just were like so undiscovered.
Slept on, yeah.
That's a word. That's an important word, slept on, because when we launched Sheesh, we launched with a playlist called Slept On.
True.
And it was just a bunch of fire up and coming artists. But so yeah, the whole core of our company was like around up and coming artists. And like, how can we promote them? And we didn't really know much about like what blog culture, what was really going on.
You knew more than I did.
I knew a little bit because I used to follow this one blog back in middle school. But we were like an Instagram page. I didn't know anything like what people were doing on Instagram. So we worked with Zach to create like these beautiful, like clean templates to promote artists. And he made these like nice animations that just looked sick. And it had the song playing of the artist, like clean press photo. And then, I would write like a nice little blurb about the artist. And it was like pretty cool promotion at the time. So we were doing a lot of those, and it was like a cool way because the artists would see this and they were like, this is really cool and clean, even though we didn't have a lot of followers. I think they respected like the
how it looked,
and like
the write-up was genuine.
Yeah,
it
looked clean,
coming from the heart. And
they were the main storing it, sharing it.
The main objective was, to give these artists exposure and then also get exposure for our platform because we were trying to grow. So we were hoping
mutually
having a dope, animation, they would repost it onto their story, tag us, the basics.
Yeah, and we started kind of growing from there. And through that, their teams would see like, oh, what's she? So that's how we met managers, people at labels. We just started growing our network that way. And then we added in a couple other segments. We did like interviews, as you mentioned earlier, which we were being very resourceful. Like I remember I opened up for 2 friends, and after the show I was like, yo, we have this platform, like we'd love to do an interview, and they did it. They were down. So we did like a 2 friends interview, which was pretty big like at the time. And then we started doing music news.
Well, at this point we were still very tapped into electronic, but we were kind of
starting to branch out a little bit because we started featuring like non-electronic artists.
But we had Shockwave Radio, as we mentioned earlier in the in the episode.
Yeah. Which, dude, episode. If we kept that
this going, is crazy. We're doing a podcast. But yeah, so we had the spotlights. We had Shockwave Radio. We're doing news
and
definitely a bunch of other stuff, interviews, and then I feel like we just kept adding more and more, and then we kind of got to that point where we were doing like relatable content and just a bunch of different things.
Yeah, and then we were like we started wanting to go backwards kind of. We're like, oh, we're kind of like a music blog but on Instagram, and no one was doing it at the time that we know of, at least. And so we were like, we should make a website. So that's when we started thinking about a website, but we didn't actually launch one.
We thought, we knew the website would legitimize what we're doing, and, we'd be able to provide a lot more value to more artists, and that's why we started it in the first place. So, But yeah, getting a website made was craziness.
We went through 2 different websites that we ended up scrapping before we launched the 3rd website, which is crazy, but it's honestly a testament to like we had really high standards. We wanted it to look clean. Like our whole branding was pretty clean from the jump. So we had high standards and it just didn't work out. So we scrapped them. But finally, the 3rd one was like cool to us at the time. And we launched that early 2021, like January of 2021. And then we just started like writing a ton of articles. At this point,
bring on writers.
At this point, I'm living at home because COVID sent me home. I moved in back home, not knowing what was going on. I was still working for the company remote for a good like 4 or 5 months until I eventually convinced my parents.
Wait, let's backtrack. So I was before COVID, obviously. So we were working on Sheesh a ton. So you were at your company.
After
full
work
time,
hours, I was
you were
working hard
you were
on Sheesh.
grinding on Sheesh. At that point, I was interning for David Grutman, and I was also on Nightmare's team, Codeco's team, and I had 6 classes I was taking.
Yeah.
And I came out to LA in March, and I think I texted you. I was like, yo, like LA's the place to be. Like
a week before everything.
Yeah, I was like, we need to be here. This is the place we need to be to really scale our company. And so you're like, oh, like, all right, like
it did.
I haven't been there yet, but you believed me. Like I was telling you, I was seeing all these people. Like this is where it's at. And so didn't matter because a couple of days later, COVID, like the very, very beginning of COVID happened, and I flew back to Miami, finished off school, didn't have a formal graduation, and
unfortunately
ended up moving home to Jupiter, and you moved back to Malvern, Pennsylvania, right outside of Philly. And at that point, you were still working full time, and I was home, and I wasn't going to find a job. It was COVID. We didn't know what was going to happen. Yeah, bad timing. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not gonna move somewhere during this. Nobody knew what was happening. They were letting off people.
Yeah, they were letting off people. Yeah. I don't know when it quite started, but not long after COVID.
It started like March. Yeah.
Probably March, April. They were just firing.
Yeah, just slicing. And so that's, I mean, you can kind of share your story of.
Well, yeah, we were.
Where you were at.
So working at home, I was working remote for that company. Like, obviously, there's more time to work on things because after your 9 to 5 kind of clock out, like you can't go out. I'm stuck at home. Like you can't leave the house. So we were grinding on Sheesh, and like that was a benefit because artists couldn't do anything either. So we really took advantage of it. We started having artists take over our Instagram, and we were getting pretty sizable artists at this point to take over.
Because everyone was just at home.
They're like, I'll do free exposure. Like IG Live started becoming a thing. So we started like really growing Sheesh, and like I became more and more, as you too, like more and more passionate about it. And by like June or July of 2020, I was like, we need to do this full time. Like you didn't have a job. And I was like, I wasn't even you weren't even really looking
for a job because I was like, companies are cutting people.
And I realized we needed to put
COVID was kind of progressing, and I was on the wave of like, yo, we need to do this full. We need to go all in to really take this to the next level.
Yeah, and I couldn't go all in myself while working full time for someone, and I didn't even morally feel right putting my energy and mental space into Sheesh while working for this company, because the last month or so I definitely was like noticing myself not being like fully present, so it didn't feel fair to them, so I quit. I didn't even
which was a wild thing to do during COVID
in a way, because everyone's getting laid off.
While people were getting laid off.
So that was the one thing.
That shows your dedication to Sheesh.
I talked to my parents, and the only they saw how passionate I was, and like they saw Sheesh was actually growing, but they were like, "You want to quit You want to quit a paying job while everyone's getting
crazy.
laid off? I was like, yes. I'm living at home. Like, I don't have to pay. Well, I was paying rent still for New York, but I don't have that many expenses, thankfully. But yeah, they didn't give me much backlash. They were actually on board, which was great, and thankful for them. They always support. So quit, and we were by
Off
like
to the
July,
races
August,
at that
it was
point,
full-time Sheesh, and it was very liberating. We just started coming up with so many ideas. We knew we had to move to LA. We started talking about it. At that point,
it was...
We weren't ready.
Far away.
But we were like, we will move there at some point.
At some point, yeah. And so that's when, I mean, we can talk about this. I mean, we were living in different states. We were I mean, I think we would literally, like...
You came and visited.
Like, both of us would work out in the morning, and then we would hop on, like, a Google Hangout all day and pretty much talk about stuff. And we were like, all right, we're both living at home. You know, we're a media company, and we're not seeing artists. Like, we're living on the internet at that point. I mean, we came to a point, I think we were posting 6 times on Instagram per day, sending out tweets left and right, like all the articles we were posting and, you know, other stuff to tweet, and then started going really hard on TikTok, posting like 2 or 3 TikToks a day.
Oh, yeah. So we can get into that real quick. So yeah, at this point, it's like end of 2020, and TikTok's starting to become a big thing. And at the time, you were messing around with it, and I'm glad you had like interest, because I wasn't really like naturally gravitating towards TikTok. But you started messing around, and like a couple of videos like did decent, and we got up to like, I remember like 7,000 followers pretty quickly. And I was like, Noah, like, look, 2021, biggest goal needs to be TikTok. And I was a hardo on you for it. And you stepped up, bro. Like, you started going ham, I think posting pretty much every day. And I was documenting the whole process. So I was taking screenshots. And, dude, we just started flying up. By like February, we're at like maybe like 10K. And then like middle of February, we're at like 15K, 20K. Because the videos started hitting like 100,000 views, whatever. And then I don't remember the exact numbers, but I do remember visiting our boy Frankie early March down in Maryland. And I really needed to get out of the house. So I visited him for a weekend.
At that point, things were bad.
Going.
But things were going with the TikTok.
TikTok was moving.
That was like the peak.
Momentum was going. And I remember taking a screenshot as I left that weekend on a Friday. And have a great weekend with Frankie. But 2 days later, by the time I went home, we had jumped at least 50,000 followers. And that was really the moment I was like, oh my, like TikTok really is powerful. Like, we were still relatively early in the space. It was March of 2021.
I would say early for
music,
like for music
curation.
Curation.
Media, yeah. And at that point, we saw it. There was enough proof to be like, we have to keep going. Like, the momentum's crazy. We're growing like nuts. At this point, we're hitting millions, 1, 2, 3, whatever millions on our videos. And this is when it kind of starts to get crazy. We get to like early April, and we're over 100K at this point, which is crazy, right? We started January at 7K. By April, we're over 100K.
I mean, you told me. You said, "Hey, we got to focus on this."
Yeah, and we did.
It was really
we executed
in my schedule. Like every single day, it was like, "All right,
yeah,
what do we?"
You were doing the TikTok. Today? I was running the website, so we both had like good things to focus on.
Collaborating with Instagram
and little Twitter at that point. But and then this is the crazy part that we're gonna get into. But like, you had posted, I think it was Jack Harlow, maybe it was like a Tyler the Creator video, but it was going crazy, viral. And this was like April like 14th or so, almost like a full year.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Wow, we're almost at like 2 years when this happened.
Crazy.
And so to give a little backstory, you weren't feeling well. And at this point, we were actually getting close to moving to LA.
True. Yeah.
We were
had
planning on moving.
We had looked at a couple places online.
We looked at some places. We were trying to move.
We were always kind of pushing back because COVID was so unpredictable.
Yeah. I know my family was very hesitant of like.
Yeah.
They were kind of scared for me to move. Across the country.
Which was a good thing. It
was
worked
good.
in our benefit.
It worked in our benefit because you weren't feeling well and you were seeing doctors at this point, not knowing. No one really knew what was going on. But you still didn't feel well. And like you knew to yourself, like something's wrong. And I remember you texted me. This is crazy. You were like, you technically had bronchitis, according to some doctors. Because you had went in.
Yeah, my primary doctor said I had bronchitis, which could have been a thing at that point.
But there was something
I had
deeper
like a
going
pretty
on.
bad cough, but
I remember you texting me like, bro, like I feel this lump in my chest, like I can physically feel it. And all I said was like, bro, you need to go get that checked out. I remember like go to the hospital or something. And then you went. Yeah,
I mean, so I wasn't feeling well, and this was kind of a thing that whole pretty much after when I got back from that spring break, my last semester of school before I graduated. So
it had been almost 2 years of not feeling
been a while.
Right.
Yeah, been a while. And so I kind of knew then something was up, but couldn't really figure out what exactly it was. I'd seen a few doctors and was told different things, but fast forward, so pretty much I was walking to the garage, like it was nighttime, maybe like 11 o'clock at night, and we have a refrigerator in the garage with drinks and stuff. So I was like grabbing a drink, and on the way to grab a drink, I'm just randomly like feeling my chest area.
Well, you were like coughing too.
I was coughing a lot, but I was just randomly feeling my chest for no particular reason, but I was like, oh my God. Like it was, I was like, whoa, what is this? And I felt a bump there, but I'd never felt something like this on my body. And I was just like, oh, like I didn't really freak out about it. I was just kind of like, this is weird. And so I was like, I'll wake up tomorrow. I was kind of not freaking out, but thinking like, what could this be? But then I was like, it's kind of late. Like I'm going to go to bed, wake up tomorrow and figure a plan out. And so I wake up to like the next morning and I'm like, all right, the bump's still there. Like I got to do something about this. And so you had told me like, get that checked out. And I talked to my mom and she's like, oh, like maybe, you did something at the gym. She wasn't trying to like, I don't know. She doesn't really think that way. She was just like, oh, like hopefully.
Like everything's fine.
Yeah, everything's fine. Yeah. And then I called my grandma, who I call Nana, who I love a lot. And
shout out Nana. She's the best.
Called her and she was just like, you need to get that checked out like immediately. And so that was kind of her phone call really like spoke to me, and I was like, I gotta go. Like I gotta figure this out. Put everything aside. Health is the most important thing, regardless. And we talk about that all the time. But so I went to the urgent care and I get there, and this is when COVID's like crazy. I mean,
yeah, I don't think there was even a vaccine yet.
No. And so they immediately think, oh, this kid's got COVID, like all these things. And so I go in there, take the COVID test, don't have it. And then they're pretty much like, yeah, I mean, we don't know what this could be. Like we don't do scans here, anything like that. Like you need to go to the emergency room. So I'm like, all right, no problem. So I go there, call my mom on the way, and she's like, all right, I'll meet you there. She was working and she was about to finish. It was like, I don't know, 2:30. She finishes at 3, whatever. So I walk in, go to the emergency room, packed out. I mean,
with COVID
people, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I get there and I'm like, I need to get blood work done. I need to get a scan. Like that's what I needed to do to see what the bump was. And my mom got there. She was waiting outside, so that it was kind of weird. You know, I was just kind of just chilling there. I got the blood work done, did the scan, and then by the time that was all wrapped up, I go back to the waiting room, kind of died out a bit, and she was allowed in. And so from there, a doctor came out, older guy, comes up to us, and he's like, I want to tell you something. I have some news for you, essentially, and I want to take you to the special room.
What was special about
Yeah,
this room?
so we're walking back. I wasn't thinking about it too much. I wasn't like, oh, something bad's about to happen. I was very positive and staying optimistic about everything. And we go back to the special room, which was really just not like a hospital room. It was honestly kind of special compared to like your normal hospital room. And it was just very warm. Couches, TV, just kind of just like a chill vibe compared to like your normal hospital room per se. And so the doctor's there. He pretty much tells me, we did the scan and there's a mass pressing against your heart and your lungs that's the size of a baseball, which was kind of crazy to hear. And he was pretty much just like, yeah, I'll give you some time to contact any doctors, make some arrangements. You need to stay here tonight, and then tomorrow we're going to, figure out a plan. And so my mom's at that point just in tears, crying, very sad about the situation. And I was very, not unfazed, but like I was just kind of, as I said, I was staying positive.
About it. Yeah,
I was staying positive. And I felt like if I let my mom see me sad and cry, it would have just made everything worse. And so I was really just trying to keep my spirits high. And I was like, all right, well, this is the news today, and tomorrow we'll figure out the next step. And so I remember staying at the I was about to say hotel. Stay at the hospital. Low key kind of a hotel. Yeah. When you stay there for a while, but stay at the hospital that night. I called some of my other close friends, told them the situation that I have cancer. We're not sure what type of cancer it is. We're not sure like what the next steps are, but I'd keep everyone updated, as I know myself. And so went to sleep, like had a good night of sleep. Wasn't overthinking, kind of just like, all right, tomorrow we'll figure it out. And so tomorrow came, and doctor came in, a group of doctors, honestly, and it was kind of intimidating because it was like, all right, this 24-year-old has cancer and it's a massive mass, and this seems like a pretty urgent situation. And so off the rip, I was just pretty much told like, hey, I was in Jupiter, my hometown where I grew up, and they're like, hey, like we can't handle this at this hospital, you need to go to Tampa, which is where they're recommending, because they have all the resources, and we feel as if they'll be able to help you out the most. And so we were like, oh, like what about Miami, because that's a lot closer and I have family there. And they're just like, no, like we recommend you going to Tampa. I'd never even been to Tampa, which is kind of wild growing up in Florida, but fully open to it, trusted the doctor, and pretty much took an ambulance out to Tampa. And I think I updated you and some other friends like, hey, I'm going to Tampa. They're going to do a biopsy and we're going to figure out, the next steps to all of this. And on the way to Tampa, I was just kind of watching Netflix, just really trying to just not think about what's about to happen and how crazy this could be potentially. And so just chilling on the way. It's a pretty long car ride, and so, but not in the ambulance. They whip it. And so get to Tampa. It's nighttime. My family's behind me, so they were kind of following us along the way. And I don't even think I got to really say anything to them before I got like up to the room, because of COVID was still crazy at that point. And I get up. I don't even really remember the rest. So you know the story. Like, I get there, and then pretty much the next morning, like very early, I do the biopsy, and I had major complications, collapsed, and immediately went into a coma.
That's when they put you in the coma.
Yeah, and so there wasn't even a lot of time to really process any of it for myself and then my family, because it all just, boom, got to Tampa, got the biopsy, coma, and then was in the coma for weeks. Had a lot of surgeries. 7 weeks. Had a lot of surgeries. I mean, there was a lot of moments during that 7-week period where it didn't seem like I was gonna make it out. But my team of doctors really pulled through and had a lot of people praying for me, and I was just meant to make it through, obviously. And so that all happened. I woke up, and I mean, when you wake up from a coma for 7 weeks, you don't really know. I mean, it was like a blackout. Like, I woke up and I had no clue, like,
yeah,
about anything. Like, I was really drugged out and just really just so out of it, and felt very uncomfortable. And then it wasn't even, I mean, it was that, and then it was also like I had lost over close to 100 pounds. So I was very skinny, and
you were
bald, just
weak, like you couldn't
very weak, couldn't use my phone, couldn't walk, couldn't eat food because I had the trach and everything, and so couldn't drink water, none of that. So that whole 7 weeks was miserable. I wasn't awake, but my whole family experienced the day-to-day of my updates, and my friends as well. You know, my sister set up like a group chat to keep everyone updated, and I mean, they were going through it. And then when I woke up, it was like, all right, great. Like, he's alive.
Right.
Like, he's alive, he's awake. But that was just really, I hate to say, but that was like the start of it. It was like, all right, now I need to learn how to walk again. Now I need to learn how to eat food, drink water, swallow, and all of that stuff. I was not capable of really doing anything on my own. And so that was very tough on me, because I like being able to do stuff on my own, and just relying on nurses and physical therapists and occupational therapists was very difficult. And it was very hard, but I had a great team, and I had my mom there constantly. She was really the only one able to constantly be there with the restrictions of COVID, allowing, not many people to come up to the rooms. And so I really pushed through it. I learned how to walk again, which is a hard thing to do. Like, once you lose that amount of weight and you don't walk for a long time, like, I was extremely weak. Like, I don't know if you saw videos, but like, it was hard for me to just like walk. It was hard for me to just like get to the side of my bed and put my socks on.
Well, yeah, just to real quick to to give more context to what you're talking about, like, so first off, it happened so quick, right? Like, your mom actually called me. It was a Saturday, and I missed her text because on Saturdays I'm like not on my phone. I missed her call, and then I call her back, and she's telling me, yo, like, Noah's gonna be in a coma. Like, I was just so like caught off guard at this point. He's in good care, but You might not talk to him for a little bit. A little bit turned into like 7 weeks. It was a long bit. And at this point, months. I wasn't telling anyone like that you had cancer because I didn't know if you would even want me to. But I do remember telling like a couple close friends, and one of them had her own experience with cancer. And I remember she told me like, you know, if they're in a coma for more than like 2-3 weeks, like that is bad. So when you hit week 4, week 5, I was really bugging out. I was like, I don't know what's going on here. Like that was probably the hardest part of it, because I had people that kind of knew that were like, that's really bad. And that kind of made me bug out more, even though your mom and sister weren't telling me like too much to where I would freak out. Because at this point I'm like running Sheesh by myself. Like it's just very stressful time. And then, dude, I remember it was like early June. I randomly get a FaceTime from you. And I was like, holy crap. Like Noah called me. And you like couldn't really use your hands at this point.
My mom was.
I think your mom was
holding
like
up the phone.
Yeah, and you were like, you couldn't talk because you had the trach in, but you were trying to communicate with me. And this was the first time seeing you, and you were like bald, like lost a lot of weight. So I was just like, whoa, this is crazy. And I remember that vividly. But I was so happy that you were just like,
just alive. Yeah,
alive. And yeah, that was like the start of your recovery. And I later like flew down a couple weeks later, a month later or so, and got to see you. And like you were recovering pretty quick from what I understand. Like,
well, like, yeah. So, I mean, I had to learn how to do all those things again.
Predicting, I guess.
That I mentioned, but then I had to do a ton of chemotherapy after.
Yeah, that lasted a while.
So it was like, all right, like you're out of the coma. You know, we did all these surgeries. You're alive, you know, you need to learn how to do these things again, but we still have to kill the mass.
Like they removed a good amount
of
it.
Yeah, but they had to kill some. Yeah, they had to get rid of the rest of it, which happens through chemotherapy. And right. So I had to continue to go back to the hospital, but I was able to go home at, further down the line, and still had to do physical therapy at the house, at the crib.
Yeah.
And walk to like my front door and walk back and like all these things, because I was still very skinny and it was still very hard to do a lot of these things, but I had no problem eating. No problem drinking water. Yeah. Like I wanted to drink water.
What was your favorite thing to eat? Like what were you craving? Like that first meal?
Ooh, I feel like I was craving a lot of things, but chicken parm's like my favorite thing to eat. So I would say that was probably something. Sushi, because in Jupiter the sushi's amazing. And I mean, I just wanted food. I wasn't even that.
I'm being picky.
I wasn't even that picky. I was just like, I just need to eat food. And yeah, I was just hungry and wanted to eat stuff again. And really just like, even drinking water was like huge. Like It was just such a special thing. So to be deprived of that for so long, eating and drinking again was a big deal.
Yeah. And then I remember I came down to visit you. I had to see how you were like doing in person. This was maybe end of August, I believe, of 2021. And got to see you in person. I mean, you were like getting better each day. I think even from the time I got there to when I left, you were like definitely even a little better. And yeah, like Frankie joined us and we had a good time. I think you got to like kind of forget about your situation for a second and just like be a normal person for a little bit, And yeah, I mean, at that point we were just like taking it day by day with your recovery. We were still trying to move to LA. But we weren't trying to rush it, obviously, with your status. And this was like, because while you were gone, I wanted to do as much as I could for Sheesh to, keep it going, but I had the idea of like applying to a festival. So this was the first time we got accepted for a music festival. We got Gov Ball, which was early September, and I ended up going, just me and like a homie, Ryan, who came and like shot it with me. So I had to figure out like how we were doing the whole mic and like how we were going to interview artists. This was the first time interviewing artists in person. And do you need some help with that?
Yeah, help me out.
Low key kid needs some help. Hold on.
Yeah. Just can't have it like this for the rest. Oh. Perfect. Oh, much better.
Yeah, you got to put that muscle in there.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I wasn't standing up, so.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, even at your house, I remember we were doing IG lives. I went live with Wiz the MC, the boy.
Yep.
Shout out Wiz. We just saw him the other day.
Yeah, I saw him at a house party.
We went live with Chloe Lilac, I think, too.
I feel like we're doing a bunch of stuff.
So, still active on the page. And, yeah, a couple weeks later, like, did Gov Ball, got to interview, like, Tate McRae and Pink Sweats, Bankroll Hayden, a bunch of artists. And that, I remember trying to explain it to you because you were still just like, kind of just like, I don't care about anything. Like, I just want to get better, which is totally, understandable.
I was hyped for you. I was just like, I think I had, honestly, just a lot of FOMO, just not being able to join you on something like that. Because it was obviously such a big deal to be getting, press passes to a festival like Gov Ball, which is, the biggest, I would say the biggest festival in New York.
New York, probably.
And so, yeah, I think I had some FOMO, and then, yeah, obviously I had gone through so much. I was just trying to get better, and that was my main focus at that point. But I mean, just seeing all the content and hearing, I mean, you were texting me throughout the day and just, you're like, oh, yo, like I just met up with so-and-so, and it was super cool to kind of hear all of that and be like, wow, like, we're really building something out. And to even be at that stage, we were still pretty small, and just starting out still at that point, like it was our first time going to a festival, interviewing artists in person, and to be able to land, an artist with like Tate McRae and Bankroll Hayden and Pink Sweats and the other artists you interviewed was like such a cool thing to hear while I was just like chilling on the couch.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to obviously like, I was just trying to encourage you because it was like the first time I was like, wow, like this is a tangible experience of like Sheesh, because everything before was pretty like remote, like just digital. But this was like,
a real
we
life.
are a real media outlet at a festival interviewing like legit artists like that. So that was like the first taste of it. And I was trying to tell you, I was like, we need to go to more festivals. Like, this is really cool.
Yeah. I mean,
you can interview a lot of artists in a short amount of time.
Ton of content.
Yeah. And just seeing a lot of artists perform was obviously really cool. But yeah, I mean, so that's kind of like the gist. And you recovered. I mean, your recovery took longer.
A while, but
it took a while. But
when I got back home and I was still doing chemotherapy, I was still, getting back on the grinds and trying to help out in any way possible that I could. It was still hard. Like I wasn't even able to really sit at a desk without being like fatigued, like sitting up. Like it was hard because I was constantly in bed and I was just doing a ton of work on my phone or on the computer, just laying on the couch. But I was obviously trying to do as much as possible and help out because I knew you had been, doing a ton of work while I was gone and, sick. So I was just trying to just help out and alleviate any pressure and work possible. So yeah, that was a crazy whole time right there, and you really stepped up and took control and kept things going, kept things alive, and that kind of leads us. So yeah, Frankie, our good friend, was over. You were over as well in Jupiter visiting, and we always knew we wanted to make it out to LA. And I was at that point walking, I was not even close to like myself or anything, but I was
doing like the essentials.
I was doing things like I remember like we went to the beach. Like I was able to like go
in the
out,
pool with
grab
us.
coffee. Yeah,
We went for walks. Yeah.
it was tough, but I was able
Driving.
to do certain things. And we were talking about LA, and Frankie was like, "Hey, like I'd consider joining you." And so from there, that really started the conversation of like, yeah, like maybe we should actually like put a month on this, like figure out like when
date
like a date,
move.
like when we would actually want to go out there. And we figured out the timing that worked for me, worked for you, worked for Frankie, and we sent it. We found a place.
We tried January 2022. Didn't quite work out, but we landed on February 1st.
Right.
And
so yeah, we found a place. Frankie and I both, I drove from Florida, he drove from Pennsylvania,
Yeah,
Pennsylvania.
I think he came from PA.
And yeah, so I drove and stopped in a bunch of places. Our first stop was in New Orleans, where I got to see Hans, who we manage on the artist management side, and that was great. And then from there we went to Texas, and then I believe Albuquerque, and then Phoenix, and then LA, and we got to LA, and that was kind of the start of
See, I think you're going the wrong way, bro.
No, I'm loosening it up to get up more. Just keeps falling. Yeah. Yeah, it's good now. I just don't know if it's going to fall again. And so, yeah, thank you for helping me out again.
Yeah, I'm producing this, That's how
So that was when we made it out to LA, February 1st, and that was our
2022.
the start of our first year here, which was a pretty interesting year. I mean, it was a year of a lot of learning experiences and just really acclimating to moving across the country.
Literally across the country. I mean, you're from Florida, I'm from Pennsylvania. East Coast boys going to West Coast is a big jump regardless of what you're doing, but we were entrepreneurs, like trying to grow our company. And yeah, we're in a whole new city. LA is like huge. Did not realize it at the time. Like massive city. We knew some people, obviously.
Yeah, we knew a lot of industry people just
through the
from
internet.
Everything
we didn't even meet a lot
through the internet, and just through
person,
everything we were doing with Sheesh from the very beginning, with connecting with the artists and the managers and stuff. So we knew people here, but we had never really met them in person. So
yeah, and yeah, I mean, we knew like the main objectives of moving here was like we could throw shows again, which we were really anxious and excited to do. And we knew we had to do like video content. We didn't want to kind of continue in the path of where we were at the time, which was kind of posting like third-party content, curating third-party content.
News, stuff like that.
News
which the
and
news
all
we
that.
weren't even, wasn't like necessarily
just
like our news. Like we
wanted to create sheesh content. Like
just
that you can only find
only stuff that we were
doing.
doing. Yeah.
So yeah, that was really the first couple months. We were like figuring out what we wanted it to look like, what artists we would interview or create content with. And we just kind of started experimenting. We landed on, well, I guess a little backstory before I say this, but our good friend Anise, he did a pop-up. He was doing like beach performances. So he pulled up at Santa Monica and he's like, yo, I'm playing a show here for free. Pull up if you're around. And like, how many people were there? Like 300-400 people showed up. And we came because we're like,
there's
let's go.
a lot of people. I mean, he's just been growing rapidly. He's been crushing
it. If he did that now, it'd be probably like 1,000.
Yeah, it'd be insane. But there was a couple hundred people.
People easily. So we went to it. Like, why not have fun? And we got to meet him in person. And I mean, yeah, he recognized us in the crowd before we even got to formally like introduce ourselves. He's like, "Oh, sheesh!" Like that was cool for us. But so we ended up meeting him after, and like we were kind of mid coordinating. I think we're gonna do like we're starting a whole interview series. Like we want you to be our first guest, and we arranged it. And a day or two later, we shot the first video interview. So that was a big moment for us, and that's still on YouTube. So we started just doing that, like focusing on the artist. We would ask questions off screen. We tried to kind of do a range of like serious questions, but like fun and just like, we wanted people to kind of understand the artist a little more beyond their music, but there's only so much you can get from just asking a question and kind of like cutting to the answer because we weren't in the interviews. And so we slowly but surely kind of realized like this wasn't quite what we were trying to do. It was cool, but we felt like there was more that we could provide. And so that's kind of when the podcast started becoming a little more like maybe we should do this, but we didn't do it yet. And that kind of led us to Lollapalooza, I would say, that summer, which was July 2022? Mm-hmm. Bray came with us, took some crazy photos. That was a great experience. I mean, shout out Danny Calero for letting us stay at his house. He wasn't even there. He just let us stay with his parents. That's the only reason
we were really able to go.
We didn't want to first off, to give you guys insight, like when you get approved for like media for a festival, it really only entails like a free ticket to the festival, and you get like this media band where you have access to the media area where like all the outlets are and artists come in and out and you can interact with them. So we get accepted to Lollapalooza, but we're like, okay, like how are we getting there? Like we got to fly. Where are we staying? Like it adds up quick. Food, like
rental
Ubers, rental cars, whatever. It's a lot of money out of pocket for a startup. And Danny saw that we got accepted because we like storied it, and he's just such a good guy. He's like, yo, like you can stay with my family, like they have a nice house in the suburbs, whatever. Just like we were just so thankful. And then we meet them, we get to his house, his mom and dad,
deep dish pizza.
They have deep dish pizza waiting for us. Like she's literally texting me like, when are you guys here? We got pizza. I was like, what? Like this is crazy. And
it was nuts.
It was nuts because I'd never been to Chicago.
The whole experience. I mean, staying there was so much cooler than staying at a hotel or an Airbnb. So
it really made the whole experience
very comfortable too.
And we were super comfortable. We had rented a car, so we just every morning, drove from his house to the festival, and then that was just a whole experience in itself. I mean, this was only the second festival for me, first for you, I think first for Bray. Yeah, and I mean that was probably still my favorite festival experience. We got 24 artist interviews.
Crazy.
I mean, we interviewed Denzel Curry,
Claire Rosencrantz,
Pierre Bourne, Charlie Jordan. I mean,
so many artists.
Crazy.
That Tizo one was cool.
Tizo touchdown, that was great. So many awesome artists. Surf, Mesa,
it was dope.
And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because we got so many short form kind of content clips out of that we kind of internally were like, maybe we should just like do short form content, like forget the long form YouTube. And that kind of worked because it was a little easier for you and I to execute on. Like we were literally filming and recording it and editing it ourselves. But it just almost got even further away from what we were really trying to do. So we just experimented a lot. And I think that's kind of like a lesson in itself, is like, don't be afraid to experiment, because with everything we tried, we got closer and closer to what we were really like
what
trying
we
to
wanted
do and what we
yeah.
wanted to do, and I think what we were meant to do. And I think everything is leading up to this podcast. So
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's trial and error, and we learned a lot that first year, and I would say we did a lot of things that we thought was maybe the right move and kind of the direction we wanted to go in, but kind of realized after doing it for a little bit of time that we needed to pivot. And I think pivoting is the most important thing when you're running a company. Like, you constantly have to think of ways to improve and just figure out ways to do stuff that makes you happy. Because like at the end of the day, you mentioned like we were doing a lot of things and we just weren't really like super stoked on it. Like we were like, okay, this is cool, but it wasn't where we necessarily wanted to be. And yeah, that's kind of why the podcast was like the perfect thing. And it didn't even come from Lollapalooza. Lollapalooza got us into the short form, and then we started interviewing a ton of artists around LA and
backstage at
all
their
that
shows.
stuff. Yeah. And it was great to do all that stuff. And I think we're going to continue to do that type of content. But, you know, as we mentioned, the podcast just, you know, allows us to have longer conversations and be able to post the full interview and the full conversation and have that live on YouTube, and we can kind of clip up whatever we want and put that on socials. But there will be a place where that full thing lives, and that's the most exciting thing to us. And we kind of really took a couple weeks to kind of dive into what we want 2023 to look like. And I think with the direction that we're headed in, it's the best direction yet. And we've been in many directions. We call this Sheesh 4.0.
Yeah.
We've been constantly changing direction and figuring out what would be best for us. But this direction feels special. And the first year in LA, I mean, we did 3 shows. We did, you know, some great showcases, and it was a lot of fun. And this year, though, we really want to put a heavy emphasis on shows again, which is one of the first things we were really passionate about when starting this whole thing up, is live events. I mean, we love bringing people together, and we're going to do a show pretty soon in May 11th. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the things you do, you just kind of have to like sit back and be like, is this really what I want to do? Because things move so fast, you know, like you start doing something and then next thing you know, it's like 6 weeks later and you're like, oh my God, like, you know what I mean? And so, and then a lot of the social media stuff, which we were doing, it's like, oh, are the numbers hitting? Are people engaging with this? Is this performing well? And a lot of it's based off of that. And that's not like a bad thing by any means, but when you're on social media constantly, like it's a pretty difficult place when you're constantly on there and you're posting a ton. And if something doesn't perform up to what you thought it would perform to, you know, it's low key kind of upsetting sometimes. And so, especially when you put a lot of time into it. But since we weren't that hype on, I mean, we liked the content, like we thought it was good enough to post, obviously, but we were kind of doing a lot of stuff thinking like, oh, is this going to be good for social media?
But that's the thing. And and this was kind of a flaw, but it's natural in the media space. Like, we based our success mentally on our numbers, and like we weren't hitting numbers we wanted to hit that we felt we deserved. And it just felt like we weren't growing. It felt like
nobody cared.
It felt like no one cared. And it's like, look, there's a lot of factors, like Instagram's changing their algorithm every day, like TikTok too. Like, but then we would go out, and we didn't go out a lot last year, and that's what we've changed this year, and a big goal of ours to go out more. But we would go out, and people were just like really supportive and receptive of what we were doing and building, which I'm thankful for, because it reminded us when we were in ruts that no one knew about, that like we are doing something
People do
cool.
care.
Like, people do care, even if they're not like engaging with our posts, or maybe they're not even seeing it, whatever. But that was the toughest thing, is we were getting so caught up in the numbers, and like it became just not fun. Like we weren't really enjoying the content, which is not how it's supposed to be. If we're spending all day making content, interviewing these artists that we love and support, like something wasn't adding up. So we kind of, with this podcast, are just taking a step back. We're like, we don't really care too much about that. We want to have genuine conversations with artists that we care about. And, you know, hopefully people tap in. And that's really it, because we enjoy these conversations. We're going to enjoy the conversations with the artists and guests we have on. And that's the most genuine thing we could do for our audience. And I think we have to get back to like the authenticity of why we started this in the first place. So,
yeah, I mean, the podcast, bringing on guests is going to be amazing. And then we're going to do a lot of podcasts, you know, where it's just, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a good amount where it's just us. Yeah. And those will be great, just talking like life and, you know, company updates and stuff like that. And then going to do a lot of events this summer. Going to continue to interview artists at shows primarily, and then the blog will be running and doing its thing, and then artist management. I mean, we got Hans
Williams.
I mean, we're so excited for where he's headed. He's about to graduate school, and I mean, the kid's a superstar.
He's about to rip Tipitinas.
Yeah, he's about to do his final headline show as a student, and then off to the races.
We'll add more clients. That's definitely a big focus for us.
Yeah.
Building out the roster. Yeah, you said May 11th we got our next show.
That's gonna be
coming
fun.
Back from retirement. I'm gonna DJ that.
True. Yeah, we're setting this one up a little bit differently than how we set up our first 3 shows here. But yeah, we want to take these shows outside of LA, but we're gonna build up here in LA first. And yeah, we're just so excited to get back to what we truly enjoy to do. And I know with this podcast and the moves we're about to make in these next couple months, it'll be easy to see kind of like that we're having fun with it. And you can kind of see, you know, us just enjoying it. And it's just a process. I mean, it's crazy running your own company. I mean, I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. Like I always, you know, was always like, all right, graduate college, get a job. I know you were an entrepreneur major, so you always kind of had that thought. But yeah, I mean, to be doing this with you, and I mean, the amount of stuff we've been through a lot, and I feel like we have a very special story that we're finally able to share now on a podcast, which, you know, we've had some we've had some like media publications from other,
but even before that, we've had people, especially during COVID, ask us to go on their podcast. Yeah, and I remember having conversations where we're like, you know what, we should wait until we can share the story ourselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, it took a few years, but
yeah, I mean,
we wanted it to be.
The thing is we always wanted our own platform to share everything, and it didn't feel right to go on someone else's before we started our own thing, and we're able to kind of just fully explain everything
how we want to on our time.
Yeah. So just super stoked to finally be here and to have it. And yeah, these next couple months it's almost summer, so it should be a very, very exciting time for Sheesh, for sure.
Yeah. So with that being said, expect a lot more episodes. We're going to have guests on very soon. I said earlier, but yeah, let us know on Instagram, whatever, who you want to see on the podcast. even, I mean, if you want us to talk about certain topics too for the next just Perry and Noah episode, let us know. We're open to anything. Yeah, and then expect more episodes.
Thank you for tapping in.